Okay, so you've really gone down the rabbit hole this time, huh? Video analytics, metadata surveillance. You weren't kidding when you said this stuff was changing the game.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff. And honestly, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, think about it.
Hold on. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. For those of us who haven't spent the last month digging into this, what exactly is metadata when it comes to security footage?
Right, right. Okay. So imagine you've got this big, massive library of video footage. Could be anything, right?
Yeah.
Traffic cameras, security feeds, you name it.
And you're trying to find one specific thing, like that needle in a haystack.
Exactly. That's where metadata comes in. It's basically like information about the video itself. It's the who, what, when, where, and even how of the footage.
So instead of a security guard squinting at a wall of monitors, hoping to spot something out of place,
Right. Or scrubbing through hours of recordings, hoping you get lucky.
the system can actually tell you, hey, there's a blue Toyota Corolla at the south entrance. It's been there for 10 minutes, and it matches the description of a vehicle reported stolen last week.
Yeah, exactly. Metadata gives you that context.
Hmm.
It's not just a video anymore. It's a blue Toyota license plate ADC 123 spotted at this location at this time by this camera.
That's incredible. It's like going from a silent film to, well, a full-blown action thriller with surround sound.
Exactly. You go from just observing to actually understanding. And not just understanding what happened, but potentially what could happen.
Now, hold on. Are we talking about predicting the future here? Because I've seen enough sci-fi movies to know how that goes.
Well, maybe not predicting the future, but definitely anticipating it. Think about it. All this metadata creates these patterns, these trends that we can analyze. And those patterns can give us some pretty valuable insights.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example. How could this actually play out in the real world?
Sure. Let's say you're running a store, right?
Yeah.
And your system notices a pattern of people loitering around the jewelry counter late at night.
Okay, so not great, but not necessarily a crime in progress.
Right. But now you can take that information, cross-reference it with other data points. Maybe those same individuals were in earlier that day, casing the joint, or maybe there's been a spike in similar thefts in the area,
And suddenly you've gone from a hunch to a pretty solid lead.
and you can act proactively. Maybe security keeps a closer eye on those individuals. Maybe you position staff differently, or you discreetly beef up security in that area. It's about getting ahead of the game.
So it's not just about catching the bad guys after the fact, it's about deterring them in the first place.
Precisely. And it's not just about security either.
Hmm.
You can use this technology to improve efficiency, personalize experiences. The possibilities are huge.
You've definitely got my attention. But you mentioned loitering as a potential red flag. How do we define that in this brave new world of metadata? I mean, one person's loitering is another person's just browsing.
That's the beauty of it. You get to define what loitering means for your specific needs. It's all about setting those parameters in the system.
So you could, for example, create a virtual perimeter around, say, an ATM or a delivery entrance.
Absolutely. And you could set it up so that if someone hangs out in that zone for longer than, say, 2 minutes, boom, an alert goes out. We call those virtual tripwires.
Virtual tripwires, huh? Sounds pretty high tech. But I like it. It's like having an invisible security guard always on duty.
Exactly. And it's not just about security. Think about retail, for instance.
Hmm.
You could use this technology to see how long people spend looking at certain displays, what paths they take through the store.
And that data could be pure gold for figuring out store layout, product placement, all of that.
Right. Or let's say you're managing a parking garage. You could use this tech to identify those prime parking spots that always seem to be taken.
And adjust your pricing accordingly.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
It's all about using data to make smarter decisions, whether it's about security, efficiency, or even just understanding customer behavior a little better.
You know, it's funny. When most people think about surveillance, they picture those grainy security cameras in dark alleys. But we're talking about something far more sophisticated.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't your grandfather's security system. We're talking about systems that can recognize faces, track objects, even distinguish between a stray cat and an actual intruder.
Okay, now that's impressive. But with all this data flying around, doesn't it raise some privacy concerns? I mean, where do we draw the line?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something we need to be very mindful of as this technology continues to evolve.
Because it's one thing to use metadata to, say, prevent a crime or improve traffic flow, but it's another thing entirely to use it for, let's just say, less noble purposes.
Exactly. And that's why transparency is so important. People need to know how this technology is being used and what safeguards are in place to protect their privacy.
I couldn't agree more. It sounds like we're entering a whole new frontier when it comes to security and surveillance. But it also sounds like we're stepping into, well, potentially murky waters.
We are. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to weigh the benefits against the risks, and make sure we're using this technology responsibly.
Absolutely. So for those listening who might be thinking, okay, this is all very fascinating, but how does it apply to me? Who are the major players in this field? Who's actually putting this tech into practice? Well, from the sound of it, this technology isn't just for the big guys with deep pockets anymore.
You're right. It's becoming more and more accessible every day. In fact, there are a number of companies out there that specialize in making this technology available to businesses and organizations of all sizes.
So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but where do I even start? What would you recommend?
Honestly, the best thing to do is reach out to an expert. There are companies that specialize in this type of technology, and they can help you figure out what's right for you.
So it's kind of like, don't try to build your own security system from scratch, right? Find someone who knows what they're doing.
Exactly. And there are some great companies out there. In fact, you mentioned one earlier, Continental Computers.
Right, Continental Computers,
They've got a really good reputation in the industry. They can help you design a system that meets your specific needs, and they can also provide ongoing support.
which is huge because as we've seen, this technology is constantly evolving.
Absolutely. And the last thing you want is to invest in a system that's going to be outdated in a year or two.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. It's amazing to see how far technology has come and how it's being used to enhance security and, frankly, make all of our lives a little bit easier.
It's true. It's a really exciting time to be involved in this field.
It really is. But as we wrap things up here, it's important to remember that with all of this exciting technology comes a certain level of responsibility.
Absolutely.
Mm.
We need to make sure we're using it ethically, responsibly, and always with an eye towards protecting individual privacy.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the possibilities and the potential pitfalls of this brave new world of metadata and surveillance. Until next time, stay curious.